We are following a developing story that has captured national attention. Today we're learning about the controversial arrest of well-known journalist Don Lemon, which raises important questions about press freedom and the role of journalists in covering protests and social movements. Recently, Lemon was detained by federal agents in Los Angeles while he was covering a major event. Reports indicate that his arrest stems from his presence at a protest in Minnesota where demonstrators disrupted a church service. This protest was reportedly organized by anti-immigration enforcement activists, and Lemon's actions recording the event and engaging with protesters have become a focal point of debate. Lemon, a veteran journalist with 3 decades of experience, was reportedly on assignment, documenting the protest and its participants. His attorney has emphasized that Lemon's work was protected under the First Amendment, asserting that as a journalist, his role is to shine a light on contentious issues and hold authorities accountable. The incident in Minnesota involved protesters alleging that a local pastor had collaborated with U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. These protests have sparked broader conversations about immigration policy, community activism, and the rights of journalists to report on such events without fear of arrest. Legal developments are also unfolding. A federal magistrate recently rejected initial charges against Lemon, with his legal team arguing that his presence at the protest was part of his journalistic duties. The question now remains, what charges, if any, will be brought forward, and what does this mean for press freedoms moving forward? Meanwhile, discussions about immigration enforcement continue at the federal level. In recent days, officials have indicated plans to coordinate with state and local authorities to manage immigration operations more effectively. Don Lemon, with over 30 years of journalism experience, has emphasized that his work is protected under the First Amendment. His legal team states that Lemon was performing his role as a journalist documenting an event and holding those in power accountable. They argue that his actions were entirely within his rights, and that his arrest represents an alarming attempt to silence reporting on contentious issues. The protest in question involved allegations that a local pastor had collaborated with U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. These protests have ignited broader conversations about immigration policies, community activism, and the importance of press independence in documenting such movements. Legal proceedings are still unfolding. A federal magistrate recently rejected initial charges against Lemon, with his attorneys asserting that his presence at the protest was an exercise of his journalistic duties. The question remains, what charges, if any, will ultimately be filed, and what implications could this have for press freedom in the future? Meanwhile, on the policy front, federal officials have indicated plans to coordinate more closely with state and local authorities on immigration enforcement operations. Recent statements suggest a potential reduction of federal law enforcement presence in certain areas, decisions that depend on cooperation with local officials and ongoing investigations. This incident underscores a broader societal debate. How do we balance national security with the constitutional rights to free speech and a free press? As tensions around immigration, law enforcement, and civil liberties continue to rise, the actions of authorities and the response from journalists will be closely scrutinized. These strategies include potential reductions in federal law enforcement presence in certain areas, depending on cooperation with local officials and the progress of ongoing investigations. This story highlights a critical tension in our society, the balance between national security measures and the constitutional rights of the press. As tensions around immigration, law enforcement, and free speech escalate, the actions of federal authorities and the response of journalists are under intense scrutiny. We will continue to follow this story closely, bringing you updates as new information emerges. The questions it raises about the role of journalism, government accountability, and civil liberties are vital for all of us to consider in these complex times.